Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It is time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday. And on the menu for this Saturday, we have Cotton 100%. 100 because we're celebrating 100 episodes of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. Everyone, thank you so much for your support. It means so much to me. What kind of a taste will Cotton 100% have? Let's get cooking and find out. As we start Cotton 100%, we're brought to the magic selection screen. Here we can determine the 3 magic spells that Cotton will have access to throughout her adventures. In addition to that, the magic spell we have selected also determines the configuration for our fairy options, so that's important. So the magic spells that we have access to are the Fire Dragon, the Thunder, the Twinkle Star, the Fire Fairly, the Bubble, and the Barrier. I wish it would give you the chance to configure things completely the way that you wanted it, as there are a couple possible configurations that aren't available here, but for the most part, what you would want, is available. So for our purposes, let's take Fire Fairly, Thunder, and Barrier. Let's get cooking. Now, there is story to Cotton 100%, but it's basically the same story that was present in the Cotton original. The short is the fairies ask Cotton's help to save the country, and in so there's a misunderstanding about the willows that she's trying to obtain being a kind of candy. Cotton loves candy, so she's on this adventure not so much to save the country, but to get the candy. Cotton 100% is basically a remaster of the original, Cotton. Or Cotton Original, which is the version that I had featured before on Shoot 'em Up Saturday. It's the only Cotton game to have come out on the Super Famicom, as the rest of the series arrived on different platforms. The original Cotton was ported to the TurboGrafx 16, or the PC Engine at the time, and the later versions would come out on the Genesis, the Sega Saturn, the Dreamcast. So this one is unique for being the only Super Famicom entrant in the series. One thing that's notable for Cotton 100% is it goes and, in redoing the original title, it chose to lighten up and make everything more colorful. So we've got more colorful stages, more colorful enemies, and overall a more bright theming to the game, as the original Cotton was definitely dark by comparison. So between the two, I really love the cute and colorful visuals that Cotton 100% has to offer. So let's get to talking a little bit about our weapons as we are drawing close to the end of the stage. So the main weapon of Cotton's behaves in an interesting fashion. It has an experience meter, which you can see there on the bottom, and you increase your experience by defeating enemies and picking up crystals. The crystals worked a little bit differently in the original game. In this one, they're just for experience. In the original one, they would give you magic as well. We can increase the number of magic charges we have in this game, but only certain enemies have those particular drops. All the crystals will basically just work towards the level of our main gun. The yellow crystals give us a little bit. If you shoot them off the ground enough times, then they'll turn red for a greater amount of experience, and if you continue to shoot them at that point, they just blow up and disappear and you've lost your experience. So you need to be careful about that. In addition to our main cannon, we have a bomb, which levels up with our main shot as well. Useful for taking out some enemies on the ground, as there are times that our main shot can't hit them. There are also the 3 magics that I mentioned before. So here, let's check out the Fire Fairly. Wait till he's vulnerable. Basically, that ignites our fairies, and they home in on the enemies on the stage. It doesn't seem a very nice thing to do to our fairies, especially as one of them is our constant traveling companion, Silk. But I guess if they're alright with it, it works out. There's also the Thunder, which deals a laser beam-like bolt of lightning in front of us for a pretty good duration of time. And then last but not least, there's also the Barrier, which I'll save for the second stage. You might have noticed that this boss really isn't very effective, as there's a huge safe spot in the left corner of the stage. With the boss of the stage defeated, we get tea time! One of my favorite parts of Cotton games. Collecting all the teacups at the end. What goes better with sweets than a good cup of hot green tea? Then, of course, at the end of the stage, we also get bonuses for, like, magic not used, all the cups of tea we collected during tea time, and that's our total bonus. Moving on to stage 2. Of course, there is a story about the Willows as we save the country. This general stage progression of Cotton is, each stage possesses a mid-boss and then a main boss, with the exception of the final stage, stage 7, which is just the final boss of the game. Well, I did die a couple times there. When you lose a life under difficulties above easy, your shot level decreases. But if the game is set to easy, then that does not occur. I did set my game to easy for this recording, just to, well, take it at an easy pace. In addition to the colorful stages, enemies, and backgrounds, I felt that they made a good use of the Super Nintendo sound chip for a relatively fun soundtrack. Here we are at the mid-boss of Stage 2, this plant that fires bees at us. With weaker weapons, he can be quite a problem, but with our powered-up shot, it wasn't too much of an issue. So as I mentioned that this title was the only entrant for the Cotton franchise on the Super Famicom, that's not the version I'm actually playing. It was released on the PlayStation as a rather late PlayStation release, I might add, in 2003 for the Super Light 1500 series. It's just a straight port of the Super Famicom version. There's no real bells and whistles to it. For years, if you're interested, the Super Famicom version came out in 1994, 3 years after the original Cotton came out in 91. As we draw closer to our second stage boss, let's start talking about plus and minus flavors for Cotton. So plus flavors, I have to say, I definitely, that's not the magic I wanted to use, I definitely love the cute and colorful enemies and characters that the Cotton series has. That's one of the biggest draws for the series to me. Going up against a snowman, we'll go and use our fire fairies to toast this guy. So as we pick up other fairies aside from Silk, they join us as options. And when you die, those fairies will come back on screen and act as a screen-clearing bomb to make things easier for you. And that's actually what took out the boss that time. Tea time! That is another plus flavor. I absolutely love the fun bonus game you get of collecting the tea at the end of a stage in Cotton. One of the greatest things. Also, the game has a great scalable difficulty. You can set it as low as easy, or it scrolls all the way up to mania. So if you're looking for more of a challenge or an easier run through, this game can definitely provide that. Some minus flavors: your hitbox is gigantic. Cotton takes up a decent amount of the screen as is compared to a lot of shoot 'em ups, and her hitbox is basically her entire size, so that can potentially be an issue. And there's also a little bit of frustration, though I've gotten used to it as I've continued to put some practice into the game, of collecting the fairies that you rescue from the demons. They're not immediately collectible, so even though the crystals and the magic gems you can pick up right away, the fairies have to be on the screen for a couple seconds before they'll actually join you. And if you're flying around trying to get a fairy to join you, you might inadvertently get yourself hit. So that's a frustration. And also, I've never really been a fan of Cotton's voice. If you're dying a lot, it can get a little frustrating. Our mid-boss for Stage 3. Well, that should just about wrap it up for today's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me this week, as you have for all those weeks previous. 100 episodes down, and I hope to be able to deliver at least 100 more. As always, if there's other Shoot 'em Ups you think I should feature for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, I'd love to hear about them. Please leave me some comments below. Once again, thank you so much for joining me for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.